BEE, helping voiceovers to be seen and heard.
Hello, we are Rob and Helen B from BEE. We are one of the co-sponsors of the One Voice Conference. And so we have been given the opportunity to just tell you a little bit about what we do. So first of all, Helen, if you want to just say hello and summarise in a couple of sentences what you can do for voiceovers.
Hi, I wish we could meet in person, but, still nice to be doing this. My name's Helen B. I have been working as a designer for nearly 20 years now, which is quite terrifying. I've started out specialising in web design back before things like Google even existed. And I went into working for marketing and print agencies, working with quite a few of the big agencies within Manchester. 6 years ago, I started freelancing, and a couple of years ago, we started working together with BEE. So my specialities are in branding and web design for voiceovers. I also do social media templates. I like using Instagram, so I do that too. So do you want to say a bit about who you are, the infamous Rob B?
Yeah, I'm Rob B. I've been a professional sound engineer specialising in voiceover production for 20 years. In 2012, I went self-employed and started my own business, and a large proportion of what I spend my time doing these days is kind of studio consultancy and helping voiceovers get their studios set up and sorted, helping them with equipment and acoustics and all that kind of stuff. And also a fair amount of training people how to use the software that they've chosen to use and in audio production techniques and things like that. I also do home visits, more often in what I call my studio tickling tours, where I kind of centre on an area of the country and visit as many voiceovers who want me to visit them as I can in that
You don't
that period
just
of time.
turn up then?
I don't just turn up, no, it is all
Excellent.
pre-arranged appointments. Otherwise it's a little bit unfair.
So we started working together a couple of years ago. We realised that between us, we can offer quite a wide range of support services for voices, and with particularly your background in production and working within the industry and the stuff that I've been able to learn because I've loitered around voiceovers for many years now. That sounds dodgy. But we have an understanding of an industry from different angles as well, which is quite nice. Yeah. So obviously from client side, you've recorded voiceovers, you've produced voiceovers. I've worked with several doing similar industries. So we've got we like to think we have a good combination of skills to offer. Yeah. Obviously you don't have to use them all. But feel free to. I mean, cool. Yeah.
So what we've done for the One Voice Conference and for this little film package that we were asked to put together is we put shout-outs on social media and just asked if there were any kind of burning questions from voices that we could kind of answer here and now for you, and just give you hopefully a little bit of a taster of where we're coming from as a company and as individuals, and hopefully help you along the way as well a little bit. So what we've done is we've kind of summarised the questions, or most of the questions that we have been asked, and so we've just got a couple of little questions that we are going to be kind of answering now for the next 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody that did reply. It was really nice to get some questions.
And if we don't cover your question now, then keep your eye on the blog on our website and similar little avenues like that where we will
and the
be,
newsletter that we've got.
Yeah,
we will send out the answers, we promise, to each and every one.
We will address the questions. So first of all, if I can ask you, Helen, if you are a voiceover and you are trying to create your own brand, how do you go about doing that?
I mean, that is a massive question. So thank you. But it is also one, obviously, I get asked quite a bit. I think one of the things to remember when you're talking about branding is remember that branding is more than just a pretty picture. It's more than a logo. It's more than a catchy strapline. It's more than a website. It's more than the way you present yourself on social media or within networking. It's more than that. It's a collection of absolutely everything. So a logo is a tiny part of a branding. It's the way people recognize you and your brand, but it is not necessarily your brand. One of the ways that I start working with clients, whether they have an existing brand or logo and website or not, is to take them through a process that I call the brand exploration form. Now, those voiceovers that have worked through this process will love it and hate it for a couple of reasons. And the main one being it makes you think. It really is so important that any brand is based on firm foundations, the same as you building anything, physical or not. And so what's key to starting through the branding, and as I say, the thing I do with every single one of my clients, is work out what those core beliefs are, what those values are, what makes them different to their competitors, what is their unique selling points, a phrase I hate, but we need to use. It's the things like finding out who their target audience is so that you know if you're marketing to them, if your target audience is far more corporate, say, you know that you need to change the tone of voice that you use to communicate with them. If you're talking to young, more energetic kind of clients, then your branding and your tone of voice needs to represent it. So it's all about digging into those core basics about who you are, what you offer, why it's different, and who it's been offered to. And from that, you start to build up on keywords, and there's lots around colour psychology and the way that that's interpreted by different people. But the core and the vast majority of a brand needs to be those core values, what you believe in, finding out why you do what you do.
Cool.
Does that explain it?
Explains it enough for me for today. Thank you.
I think one of the things that just to add on, that I made you do recently with our own branding, and I was talking about the why of a branding. If you Google Simon Sinek's why for branding, it's an amazing 5-minute video I really recommend everybody watch, is trying to find that why. We did it. We didn't particularly enjoy the process. It was hard work. It took several days of racking our brain to come up with phrases or words that represented both of us doing what from the outset is quite different stuff. And we came up with helping voiceovers to be seen and heard. It summarises everything we do, and it is absolutely at the core of what we do. We're here to help voiceovers. And yeah, so finding that why really helps focus your brand and can really help with your marketing as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just added some extra
I
bits
said
there.
I'd had enough and you gave me more.
Like all good branding people, we like to talk. So, moving on to the studio. So, the first question I'm going to ask is about noise floor. So, just how important is it to get rid of noise floor before the record, or do you do it post-production?
Okay, so noise floor is basically the noise that your microphone and system and actually recording environment make. So, I mean, every piece of electronic equipment will make a small amount of noise, which you'll hear, hopefully at very low volumes, as a hiss. When you've got everything put together and it's in your recording studio or your booth or however you're recording, what gets added onto that system noise is kind of the ambient noise that's around. So, there may be a little bit of traffic rumble from a couple of streets away or something like that, and that will be part of that noise. You may have a ticking clock in the back of your studio. That would form part of your noise floor. So what we're talking about with this question is whether we just take what we've already got and then eliminate it in post-production, or whether we do our best to lower that noise floor as low as we possibly can before we even start recording. And the answer to that question, very simply, is that we eliminate as much of that noise floor as possible. It's not going to be possible to get rid of all of it, simply because even if we manage to have a completely airtight room and we're sitting in an anechoic chamber or something like that, there will still be that system noise, that little bit of hiss, which will form the noise floor. But yeah, we still need to do our absolute best to get rid of as much of it as possible. And we do that essentially by our soundproofing techniques, and also removing that ticking clock from the studio. The most part of our soundproofing will be getting rid of any noise ingress, so that road 2 or 3 streets away, that low traffic rumble that's coming in, we need to try to get rid of that as much as possible. Mm-hmm. But also, the noise of the fridge or that ticking clock, or just telling the kids to shut up, give them a gobstopper each before we start work, that kind of thing, just to help us keep the noise, the ambient noise in the studio as low as possible, so that we know that we are recording as cleanly as we can, and there won't be any kind of noise interruptions that we don't want, that will break that kind of illusion that you as a voiceover are talking direct to the person who's listening to it. The problem with doing it in post-production is that it's far from perfect. Until very, very recently, it was really difficult to get any kind of noise reduction plugins that you could really use heavily without leaving kind of artifacts and degrading the quality of your audio. Things are getting a lot better now. But it's still simpler in the long run to be working at your noise floor in your studio and keeping it low. For 2 reasons. Firstly, because even the very latest generations of noise reduction plugins, which are a lot more adaptive and intelligent, still have the potential to leave artifacts in your audio if you overuse them. And secondly, because anything that you need to do in post-production means that your job from start to finish is going to take longer, and it means that you're going to be getting less work done over a day or over a period of time. Whereas if you've got a really low noise floor, you can record, top and tail it, maybe take out a few fluffs, MP3 it or whatever, and have it out the door, rather than having to sit and use your spectral display or whatever else it is, and run processes to get rid of all that noise infraction that you've got on your recordings. So it's always better to record as clean as possible and rely on post-production as little as you can.
Yeah. So that investment in the space, the recording, is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That would make sense. And from what you've said, saves money in the long run.
Yes. Well, it does.
Time.
It saves time. And if you don't have to buy the software which you're going to use to clean up the audio, then it is saving you money as well, yes.
So that was Rob turning the screensaver off so that we can see the next questions.
Yes. Somebody took too long answering the question and the screensaver came on.
Yes.
So the next question for you then, Helen, is you've got your website, you've got your business cards, you've got your thank you slips, whatever you call them, I've forgotten.
Compliment slips.
Compliment slips.
Not really used these days,
Not
but
really,
anyway.
but you've still got, the full package of business stationery, you've got your branding kind of in mind and all the rest of it. How much should your picture appear on all of that stuff?
Oh, so this is a really tricky one, and I'm not going to answer this helpfully. It totally depends on who you are and what you're doing. If, for instance, your background or not necessarily background, if you're a working actor as well as a voiceover, then you're much more likely to have your image on things than you are if you're purely known for your voice. It totally depends on your personality. Some people absolutely loathe having pictures, and I think we're both in that category.
Pretty much.
But at the same time, having your face and images of you on your social media profiles are really key. People will interact with people that they know. People get to know you better if they know what you look like and who you are, and they feel more connected to you as a person if there is an image of you there. So I highly recommend regularly posting pictures of yourselves up there, because people get that connection with you, and that's how you build relationships with clients, with customers, with everyone. Okay. So yes and no. Not a helpful answer, but hopefully explains why it's
yes, yeah. It's all to do with the answer to question one. It's all to do with your branding, isn't it? So,
yeah, and what your values are. Absolutely. Yeah. So nice quick one there.
Good.
So would it be advisable, Rob, to get SIP audio account, box codec, Source Connect standard, or would Source Connect be fine on its own?
Okay, so this question, if I can kind of retreat slightly from the exact question and think about, because what the question is dealing with, which is something which is very much on everybody's mind during lockdown, is the remote connectivity. And you have your studio at home, which is a necessity these days, even if it wasn't before. And if you want to work with external studios, you have to have some way of connecting with them and being able to deliver broadcast quality audio and have that directed session. And so there are a number of different solutions to enable you to provide that. There is a blog which I've just written and published on the Gravy for the Brain website, the URL of which will probably appear at the bottom somewhere down here if I remember to put it on after we're finished. And so there's more details about some of the market leaders. There are one or two other services as well, but there's details about some of the market leaders on that blog. What this question is about is which route you take and which one you want to use. The ones which are mentioned there were SIP Audio and Source Connect Standard in particular. The way I'm going to answer that question is basically say that the one you want to use is going to be the one that your client wants you to use. A studio will come to you, or a production house or whatever will come to you, and they will say, we want to use you for this job. Can you use this? Be it Source Connect Standard, Source Connect Now, IPDTL, Clean Feed, whatever it is. And you will have to say yes or no. Now, with all the protocols which are browser-based, which is Clean Feed, IPDTL, Source Connect Now, Badalgo Call, and Session Link Pro, then you can use all of those because your routing will be correct if you can self-record already. And only one person on those calls needs to have an account. They will send you a link and you will log into their account as a guest. Source Connect Standard and Open Connection Open are slightly different. Both parties need an account, and both parties, it is a paid account for both. So with the browser-based ones, if you want to set up an account, if you want to get familiar with them to know how they look and how they work, then that's great. But you can just use them without necessarily having an account. Source Connect Standard, you do need to have your own account, and you will have to have that set up. There is also Source Connect Pro and Source Connect Pro X, but you as a voiceover probably won't need those. They're just going to give you features that you're never going to take advantage of. So Standard is right for about 90% of
so you're suggesting the cheaper product here as well.
I'm suggesting,
which is good.
I mean, it's not cheap.
No.
Source Connect Standard is about £650 at the time of going to press. But you don't need to go more expensive than that, no. So SIP Audio is a particularly kind of, and seeing it was mentioned here, is an interesting case in point. IPDTL, you can use IPDTL with what's called a SIP address. A SIP address is just a different way of connecting one device to another. And whereas most devices most of the protocols are incompatible with each other, if you have a SIP address, you can talk to any other appliance, essentially, that uses a SIP address. SIP is still largely used in the world of outside broadcast. So if you've got your football pundit doing his little report at the end of a football match, he may well be talking to a microphone plugged into his iPhone and transmitting over a protocol that uses a SIP address to do it that way. At the moment, I have to say it's a great innovation, and IPDTL are the only IP protocol provider that incorporate SIP address connectivity. But unless other vendors also incorporate that and make things cross-platform compatible, there isn't a lot of point in a voiceover getting a SIP address. I think you can get one for free, so it'll do you no harm to get one. And if you have IPDTL, then they give you a SIP address for free. But until that protocol is adopted more widely over the voiceover industry, there isn't a lot of point having an actual SIP address.
Makes sense.
I think so.
And I guess another thing to point out as well is that you do help people that are wanting to just do quick tests.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I can help people get set up and do, the source connect in particular. It can be a little bit fiddly, but I can help people decide what to do and make sure their studios are set up for all that and all that kind of thing. But if all you want to do is a quick test on any of the platforms, then get in touch with me, give me a shout, and if I'm sat in my studio, I'm really happy just to do that with people. Nice to not have to use a new piece of connecting in front of a client for the first time. It's good to dry run these things. Just to get your head around stuff. Then just a quick test. It just puts your mind at ease before you actually have to go into a live situation with it. Cool, thanks. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question each. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to give me the top tip of what you can do to improve your website. So one of the things that you can end up spending a small fortune on websites. I think that's fairly easy to say. And in terms of hosting and whether you use WordPress, Wix, all of those, there are so many pros and cons to each of them, and so many of them are dependent on if you're building it, if you're not building it, if you like tech and you're comfortable digging into the back end of a website, or if you hate it and you don't want to go near it. That it's all really dependent on your personal situation, so really difficult to answer quickly, so I won't. In terms of things that you can do to your website, firstly, I would say always make things really obvious to find. So make sure you've got really clear contact details and put your email on there as an email address that links to opens in an email. Don't put the word AND or AT as opposed to the @ symbol. Put it there, make it live, and get a spam filter if that's what you're worried about. Put your phone numbers on there, have your mobile number, make yourself easy to connect. Studios wanting to book a voiceover with 10 minutes to go or last minute sessions, they need to know how to contact you, and they need to know how to contact you quickly. They don't want to fill out a form on your website. So it's really key to have those contact details on there as well as a form. As a producer who used to work for a production studio, I would just echo that completely. If you are last minute on a Friday afternoon, you need a voiceover doing really quickly, you don't want to have to be going searching through for phone numbers. If the phone number's not there, move on, get to the next person. And again, with the email address, click on it, it opens, send it. Don't have to retype things. People will get it wrong. The other free thing that everybody, I think, should have is a Google business page. They are wonderful ways to boost your SEO. Really good way to help get Google talking to your website, get them going backwards and forwards. The screensaver's gone on again. And they're free to set up. So what's not to love? That would be my top tip. Cool. I am going to ask you similar. So what would be your top tip for studios? Top tip for the studios. Again, there's so many top tips to offer. I think I can't... anybody who knows me sort of from Grave for the Brain and stuff will know that I can't let an opportunity to mention high-pass filters go by without mentioning high-pass filters. So I won't say any more about those at the moment because I have got another thing to say. But high-pass filters. Okay. The other thing which is really, really key to everything, and we did talk about this a little bit, well, I talked about it a little bit early on, is actually making sure that your recording environment sounds good. You can spend all the money in the world, you can spend tens of thousands of pounds, but if you haven't got a good sounding room, your recordings won't sound good. And in actual fact, if you don't have a good sounding room, the fact that you've spent tens of thousands of pounds and you've bought top quality gear will actually make your recording sound worse, because these very expensive pieces of equipment are also very sensitive, and they will reveal all the flaws in your recording environment. So the really, really top thing to do, for the reasons which we talked about earlier, as well as anything else, is just to make sure that your recording environment sounds great. And actually, just to go back a small step, a high pass filter can really, really help you in cleaning up and polishing your recordings and making them sound as they should, as good as they should do.
I mean, you do mention high pass filter. I mean, I can vouch for the repeated mention of high pass filters, even though, I mean, technically I don't need to know what they are. But thanks. You do mention them a lot.
I won't test you.
You won't. No, don't. Please don't. Otherwise, I'll ask you about our branding.
Okay, fine. So I think that's all we've got time for, really. Thank you for watching. If you are still watching, I hope you found some of it interesting. Just time to kind of plug who we are again and the website. So hopefully there'll be a clever little graphic appearing somewhere. But
we have the banner name as well.
We've got the banner
Google
there,
the banner name.
So yeah, BWE Limited, b-e.co.uk is the website.
We're usually hanging around on social media. Yeah. I loiter on Instagram an awful lot. I think I mentioned Facebook. You're on Twitter quite a bit.
Yeah. And if you don't find us there, just check the bar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's the socials as well behind my head. So yeah, those are our details. BWE, thank you for watching.
And I really hope we can chat to people.
I hope we can chat to people, yeah, and enjoy the rest of the conference, because I'm sure.
I'm looking forward to the virtual boat trip.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to try and see I'm intrigued to see how they're going to do that tour down the Thames this year.
Yes, let's see. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all further down the road somewhere, I'm sure.
Cheers. Bye.
BWE, helping voiceovers to be seen and heard.